Good morning, class. Our topic for this morning is about the origin and development of public administration. Now, during our previous module, we have uh, discussed the four pillars of public administration. So I hope you're able to grasp the meaning and the concept of what is public administration all about. Now, today we will discuss its origin and development. Preliminary public administration is considered number one as a practice. It emerged during the development of early civilizations of the world, only that it took 2 centuries before the concept of public administration was developed. And number two, it is being considered as a field of study. In the US, Woodrow Wilson called for the separation of public administration from political science as a discipline generated support from other disciplines. Now let's go to its history. In the early systems, public administration has ancient origins. In antiquity, the Egyptians and Greeks organized public affairs by office, and the principal office holders were regarded as being principally responsible for administering justice, maintaining law and order, and providing plenty. So, just like today, um, we the public office is being organized also by office, like the LGU. Okay, and the office holders were regarded as the office principal office holders, meaning the one who is like the head of the office, were regarded as being principally responsible for administering justice, maintaining law and order, and providing plenty. The Romans developed a more sophisticated system under their empire, creating distinct administrative hierarchies for justice, military affairs, finance and taxation, foreign affairs, and internal affairs with its own principal officers of state. Then an elaborate administrative structure later was being imitated by the Roman Catholic Church. It covered the entire empire with a hierarchy of officers reporting back through their superiors to the emperor. However, this sophisticated structure disappeared after the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century. But many of its practices continued in the Byzantine Empire in the East, where civil service rule was reflected in the pejorative use of the word Byzantinism. So up until now, we have this what we call civil service rule. The emergence of administration. Now, Woodrow Wilson was being considered as the father of public administration, and his paper entitled The Study of Administration gave a definition of the concept of administration. First, it is the most obvious part of government. Second, it is government in action. It is the executive, the operative, the most visible side of the government, as old as the government itself. This led the founding of the science of administration and the establishment of the first stage of evolution of public administration. Now, question, is there a Philippine public administration? So probably you would say yes, because that is our course, ma'am. Okay, so yes, there is a Philippine public administration, as there is American public administration, French public administration, and Thai public administration, and etc. Now, Alex Brillantes and Marisol Fernandez in their book regarded Philippine public administration as a form of discipline or field of study. When the Americans established the Institute of Public Administration, or IPA, until it evolved as one of the most studied discipline in the country. Also, Philippine public administration as a form of practice is already evident from the early civilization of the country, the barangay as the center of everything. This practice of discipline continued to this day. Now, public administration as academic field of study formally began with the establishment by the Americans of the Institute of Public Administration in the University of the Philippines in the year 1952. Hence, the close affinity of Philippine public administration theory to American public administration theory and practices cannot be divorced. So if you are going to look at it, our public administration is closely similar to the American public administration, just like our Philippine Constitution. No, our Philippine Constitution is also or has a close affinity with the American Constitution. Now, Alex Brillantes and Maricel Fernandez, again in their book, said there is Philippine public administration as long as there are institutions of public administration addressing specific sectoral concerns. There is Philippine public administration as far as it is being a field of study is concerned, and there is Philippine public administration considering the massive role of bureaucracy in Philippine public administration. There is Philippine public administration when we consider its major institutions in education, politics, and government. And lastly, there is Philippine public administration when we have basic public administration structures and processes. Public administration is primarily composing the entirety of the government and accompanying practices which can be observed in the delivery of the necessary services to the public. Now, a while ago, we know that Woodrow Wilson was considered the father of public administration. Now, who is considered as the father of public administration in the Philippines? Okay, so he is or was Dr. Raul P. de Guzman. He is considered as the father of public administration in the Philippines. So, de Guzman was a professor emeritus of public administration at the University of the Philippines. He was also the president of the National Research Council of the Philippines and was founding Secretary General of the Eastern Regional Organization for Public Administration, or EROPA. He earned his PhD in government from Florida State University and is the eponym of the de Guzman Award for Outstanding PhD Dissertation in Florida State University's Askew School. Okay, so again, Dr. Raul P. de Guzman is the father of public administration in the Philippines. Public administration in the Philippines, its history, heritage, and years. The public administration in the Philippines comes from the different colonial regimes and idiosyncrasies of Filipino ethos. It is a blend of Western and indigenous practices and culture. It is a result of an agreement between the United States Technical Assistance Program and the Philippine government through the Technical Cooperation of the University of Michigan to professionalize the government service. The birth of the Philippine Public Administration. So literally, it is in the shadow of the USA. Now, as you can see in the picture, former President Donald Trump visits the Philippines. So he visited Malacanang on November 13, 2017. The Philippine Public Administration as a discipline formally began with the Bell Report, specifically the technical assistance brought in the country by the University of Michigan of the United States of America with the idea of jumpstarting the colonized country's economic progress after the World Wars. In 1952, the Institute of Public Administration was established in the University of the Philippines, patterned after the University of Michigan's curriculum. It was created to provide a training program that would boost the professionalization of the country's civil service. Mr. James K. Pollock, the chair of political science, and Mr. John Lederle, the director of IPA, both from the University of Michigan, came in the Philippines in that same year to set the institute in motion. They created the institute's library, managed a two-pronged program, which includes an in-service training for government employees and an academic program for university students. And they crafted a program for research and publication. The second technical assistance from the USA was from Harvard University in 1978 to introduce public policy in the school's curriculum. Now let's discuss an overview of public administration in the Philippines. First, as a field of study. We discussed earlier that the Institute of Public Administration in UP was established with the help of the Americans. The National College of Public Administration and Governance at UP and in other universities. From a struggling discipline, it is now closer to the hearts of individuals working in the government. It developed its own theories and concepts that can be called its own. Also, it has come up with its own fields of specialization, like policy analysis and program administration, organization and management, local government administration, public fiscal administration, public personal administration, public enterprise management, and voluntary sector management. As a field of practice, Philippine or public administration rather existed as early as the pre-colonial period in the country. The barangay as the basic political unit attests to the fact as early political system of government. During the Spanish time, the political landscape was replaced by a highly centralized form of government, engulfed by several corrupt officials. And during the American era, we have what we call benevolent assimilation. It put up a highly centralized civil government under Governor William Howard Taft and civil service system, which eventually and practically controlled and manned by Filipinos. The current phase of the Philippine public administration as a field of practice, okay? So we have, or problem emerges, okay, like graft and corruption. Okay, this is the most pervasive and debilitating. resulting to an inept public administration characterized by inefficient and ineffective delivery of public service. We also have excessive politics, patronage, and family inclinations, even in the past. We have what we call pakikisama and utang na loob. Restoring trust and building integrity has been an on and off process in the country. And as you know, the Philippines is being considered as the sick man of Asia, but we already have rebounded. As a field of study, it is evolving and is getting sophisticated in terms of the contributions of scholars through academic researches and scientific studies. But as a field of practice, it is found to be wanting and at times problematic. So meaning to say, daghan pa siya mga lacking or kulang no, ng mga policies and rules. One of the problems being mentioned by Alex Brillantes and Marisol Fernandez in their book, Restoring Trust and Building Integrity in the Government, Issues and Concerns in the Philippines and Areas for Reform. One of the problem is the declining trust of the general public on the government and the need to build its integrity. Restoring public trust, according to Alex Brillantes and Marisol Fernandez, is through reforming the institution, processes and procedures, reforming mindsets and behavior, reforming leadership and political will, and engaging the citizens. Philippine government administrative divisions and its purposes. So as you can see here, we have tables or hierarchies. It's like an organizational chart. Okay, so kindly take note of its the line, the dotted line. The President of the Philippines has his or her general supervision over provinces, cities, independent from a province, and autonomous regions. And the solid line, okay, it has direct relation. So as you can see, under province, we have its component cities, municipalities, and under that we have the barangays. In cities independent from a province, under it is the barangay. Then we have autonomous region, so we have provinces, and we have cities independent from a province. So still with provinces, we have its component cities, municipalities, and under it we have barangays. Same with the cities independent from a province, we have only barangay. Government administrative division levels. First, we have autonomous region. We only have one autonomous region here in the Philippines, and it is the ARMM, or the Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao. This region is given a special privilege of having additional power. They technically have higher powers than the other LGUs. Replacing ARMM is the BARMM, or the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao. Okay, so the BARM, or the BARMM, was formed with the ratification of its law, basic law, the Bangsamoro Organic Law, following two-part legally binding plebiscite in Western Mindanao, which was held on January 21 and February 6 of the year 2019. The ratification was confirmed a few days later on January 25 by the COMELEC. Next, we have provinces. Apart from the special autonomous region, provinces have the highest level of political power among the administrative divisions of the Philippines. However, provinces also form part of the regular regions of the Philippines. Provinces are headed by governors and they have their own legislative department known as the Sangguniang Panlalawigan. The province's legislature is responsible for making ordinances and resolutions for the benefit of the respective provinces. Its power and duties are governed by the Local Government Code of 1991. The Sangguniang Panlalawigan is responsible for maintaining peace and order in the whole province, as well as reviewing the city ordinances passed by the Sangguniang Panlungsod. They also have the power to impose fines on violators of provincial ordinances and other fines deemed necessary to promote common good and peace and order in the community. Next level is we have cities and municipalities. Provinces are composed of the different towns and cities within them. A city is headed by the city mayor and his subordinates. The city is considered a corporate entity, so it has the power to purchase, take, receive, acquire, and dispose assets for the benefit of the public. And they are even entitled to the power of eminent domain, where they can seize a private property for public use. However, when the city or municipalities exercise their power of eminent domain, before they can seize a private property, they need to pay for a just compensation of said property before they can expropriate it for public use. The determinative use there is public use. So they cannot expropriate property, private property. Kung mayroon ka private property, meaning title property na sa constituent. Okay? So dili na sila basta-basta maka-expropriate if it's not for public use. Cities having a population of at least 250,000 are entitled to have one representative in the Congress or in the House of Representatives. Cities are also categorized into three types, and they are as follows. We have first, highly urbanized cities, independent component cities, and component cities. A city can only be classified as highly urbanized if its population exceeds 200,000 residents, as verified by the National Statistics Office, and should have its latest yearly income of 500 million. As for independent cities, it must have at least 150,000 residents and an annual income of at least 350 million. Cities not having these qualifications are considered component cities. Another division is barangay. This is the smallest local government unit in the Philippines. It is headed by a barangay captain together with barangay councilors. Their function is to promote peace and order in a smaller scope. They are entitled to have their own risk reduction team that will cater to the needs of the residents. They assist the city officials in implementing ordinances and resolutions. So the barangay officials can also implement ordinances and can create or promulgate resolutions. Barangay have a great role in the successful implementation of ordinances because it is relatively small in scope, thus it can be more controllable than that of the higher levels of LGUs. Well, let's proceed to basic public administration structures and processes. The Philippine government takes place in an organized framework of a presidential, representative, and democratic republic whereby the president is both the head of state and the head of government. This system revolves around three separate and sovereign yet interdependent branches: the legislative branch, which is the lawmaking body, the executive branch, the law enforcing body, and the judicial branch, the law interpreting body. Okay, so we have the Philippine legislature. Legislative power is vested in both the government and the two-chamber Congress. The Senate, which is considered the upper chamber, and the House of Representatives, which is the lower chamber. We also have the executive branch with the bureaucracy at its core. Executive power is then exercised by the government under the leadership of the president, who is also the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Philippines. We have a Philippine judiciary, or the judicial department. Judicial power is vested in the courts, with the Supreme Court of the Philippines as the highest judicial body. Then we also have Philippine electoral processes and procedures. So this is our COMELEC. Then we have Philippine subnational institutions and local governments, together with decentralization processes and procedures. Thank you for listening. I hope you have learned something from this module. Okay, for this module class, your task is to research on the evolution of Philippine public administration. You can find actually plenty of study about the evolution of Philippine public administration. Just make sure that your source is competent, okay, or has integrity. After which, you evaluate the development of Philippine public administration. So you write a critic or an evaluation paper, okay, about the development of Philippine public administration. Your output will be scored according to the following criteria. First, content, which is 50 points. Organization, 30 points. Mechanics, your spelling, grammar, and diction, or your choice of words, is 20 points for a total of 100 points.